Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a non-spoiler review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now this is the 25th movie within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the second movie overall this year within the Phase 4, following Black Widow, which was released on July the 7th, and shortly following Shang-Chi will be Eternals on November the 2nd and Spider-Man No Way Home on December the 17th. Now Shang-Chi was released theatrically on Friday the 3rd of September, and it stars Simu Liu, Tony Leung, Awkafina, Shang, Michelle Yeoh and Ben Kingsley, and it was directed by Destin Cretton. Now, the setup of Shang-Chi is that it is a adaptation of the comic book character of the same name that was created way back in 1973. And we catch up with Shang-Chi, who initially goes under the guise as Shang in the beginning of the story, and we see him living life very freely, working in San Francisco as a car valet alongside his best friend Katie, and everything seems great when we see them partying in bars, going on karaoke and being very happy. Now all of a sudden things change when they come under attack from assassins in a frantic bus chase. Now shortly after, Shang-Chi realises the existence of the infamous Ten Rings organisation, which is led by his father, who we learn is an overlord who has lived for centuries, conquering many kingdoms and governments by wielding the powerful Ten Rings, which give the user great powers and abilities. Shang-Chi confronts memories of his past and learns to develop his own powers as he realises his true motivations of his father, which will eventually lead to an imminent confrontation between the two. Now overall, Shang-Chi is certainly, for the first 2/3 of the movie, a very good, brisk, entertaining and lively comic book adventure. We have lots of high energy sequences and some superbly put together fight choreography which moves at breakneck speed, some of the best fight scenes that we've seen in the MCU since Captain America Winter Soldier, and we really get some skill and inventiveness within the action scenes. The two standout sequences involve the bus scene encounter that I mentioned before, and also a fight on some scaffolding within buildings. Now, being an Asian superhero adaptation, we do get familiar visualizations and compositions of scenes that we've seen before. Typically, we get the jumping and pirouetting and somersaulting in mid-air. We get those various water and airbending scenes, manipulation of certain forces of nature. This is so typical of so many classic movies such as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, House of Flying Daggers and Hero, and so adapting that tone gives the film a very good aesthetic. The film does have quite a strong narrative, especially with the flashback scenes when we see Shang-Chi's training as a young boy, and the scenes when he's as an infant with both his father and his mother bring about a certain element of pathos and tragedy. These moments could have been pushed even further, to be honest, but they worked well enough to engage you with the overall story. The film is helped by the performances of all the cast, which do a very good job in creating very likeable and lively personalities. I honestly feel the marketing of this film really did the actors a disservice in not showcasing enough their charisma. Simu Liu is very strong and competent in the lead role as Shang-Chi. We can follow and root for him as a personality as he continues to learn of his overall destiny. I really enjoyed the chemistry that he has with Awkafina, who plays Katie, and their dynamic is really key in making the first half of the movie so enjoyable. You truly believe in their friendship, and I'm glad it never succumbed to any cheap romantics or one-upmanship between the two characters. Now, Awkafina was clearly set as the main comic relief throughout the film, but she actually provides a lot of good humour without being annoying, and she actually becomes prominent throughout the film. I also like Meng'er Zhang as Xiling, who is Shang-Chi's sister, who is a very formidable, strong presence that was never forced feminism as what so many will accuse this movie of. We learn very much that she too has had her destiny affected by the actions of her father, and she too, like Shang-Chi, has to find her overall purpose. And I really liked the movie very much so when it involves her, Shang-Chi and Katie, when they're all together, and there was a real sense of fun and entertainment where we see all of their personalities bounce off one another, very reminiscent of what we've seen throughout the Avengers movies and the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's always a pleasure to see Michelle Yeoh in any capacity, because she always has that screen presence and stature and brings a lot of that gravitas to her. And she maintains those qualities here, playing the role as Shang-Chi's nan, helping Shang-Chi's training, and she also provides a lot of exposition heading towards the final act. And to be honest, I feel we could have done with a bit more visualization of the exposition that she provides, Ben Kingsley does make an appearance in this film, if you remember his very controversial role in Iron Man 3, and here he still played very much for laughs, but this time it doesn't dismantle the movie as the way it did with Iron Man 3, and it does generate a lot of the humour going ahead into the film's final act. Fala Chen, like Michelle Yeoh, brings a lot of that emotional impact within her scenes where she plays Shang-Chi's mother, even though she has limited screen time. Her scenes with Shang-Chi's father and Shang-Chi as a youngster bringing a lot of that warmth and emotional texture. We do get a very dark and intense encounter, and to be honest, I think Marvel went as far as they possibly could while staying within those family-friendly boundaries. The film's best performance goes to Tony Leung as Shang-Chi's father. We learn of his origin at the very start of the movie, and he really provides such a statementship and texture as a character. There's plenty of empathy and depth to him, and he avoids being a one-dimensional device throughout the film. Leung lends such a sensitive, softly spoken presence and tone to his overall performance, and we understand enough of his motivation, even though it does become a bit muddled at times throughout the film. But despite that, it's such a great and believable performance, and the father-son dynamic is such a key attribute throughout this overall film. Now, there are certain issues, and unfortunately the age-old problem of Marvel's rushed, chaotic final act resurfaces itself again here. As the film delves much more into the magic and the mystical and fantasy elements, we get a huge overload of CGI dragons and monsters and beasts all clashing against one another, and it just feels so weightless over the time and by the numbers, and it really hurts this movie quite a lot more than previous Marvel movies. We get this sense here of a big, large-scale battle, but it never really rings true, and it lacks a certain setup. I really feel that the climax should have been a lot smaller and a lot more intimate. It really is overlong and overblown, and it takes you out of those engrossing moments that we saw throughout the earlier stages of the story. So if I had to give a score for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a really good, fun, entertaining solo MCU film with a very brisk and fun energy to it. We get some really inventive fight scenes and choreography, along with, for the most part, very impressive CGI overall. It was just lit by that final third act, which was again too overblown, too over the top, and very messy and chaotic as an end result. Now, just as a quick footnote, there's been so much debate surrounding Shang-Chi in terms of the fact that it wouldn't be released in China, various debates about pandering to certain territories, playing into certain stereotypical characters. We now get the repetitive debates about how woke it is, whether it's pushing any social politics or agendas, and having seen a movie, I don't believe there's any of that. There never was any over social messaging or politicising. I know many have been critical of the fact that this was Marvel's push to have the same cultural phenomenon effect for Asian audiences as what Black Panther had for black audiences, but the film isn't really trying to do that in any way, shape or form. This is, for the most part, following these characters on this great action adventure, and we have the characters far more involved in finding their overall destiny. So there's no wokeness or social agenda pushing throughout this movie, certainly that I wasn't aware of. I'm coming at this from a person who is, of course, of a non-Asian ethnicity, but for anybody who is of an Asian background, let me know in the comments below whether you feel that this film did pander to overall stereotypes. But overall, I was still very pleased and very entertained with Shang-Chi, and I think it's a fine entry within the MCU, particularly as a solo adventure. Now, just to be aware, as we all should by now, there are two end credit scenes. One is semi-important, I would say, and the other is really nondescript, and to be honest, could have been included in the final scenes without the movie. Now, I will expand a lot more on these elements within my spoiler review of this movie, and I will try to upload that very soon, shortly after this overall review as well. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and non-spoiler review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you think this does compare to earlier Marvel efforts? Do you think it can build a lot of momentum now in terms of Marvel's Phase 4? Because unlike Black Widow, this is the first forward step after Spider-Man Far From Home in terms of following the events post Avengers Endgame. So are you still invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and are you still looking forward to forward adventures after this movie when we look at the likes of Eternals and the upcoming Disney Plus shows, including Hawkeye and Miss Marvel as well? So let me know what you think in the comments. As I mentioned before, I will provide an extended spoiler reviews when I will go over far more of the standout elements throughout the film. So please hit those notification and subscription and like buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.